Just a few blocks away in downtown Phoenix, and you witness another side of America, tents packed tightly together, people collapsed on the pavement, worn down by the relentless desert heat.
Because our average temperature of the concrete and pavement in Phoenix, Arizona is 178 degrees, according to the news station. I have 4th, 5th, and 6th degree burns over 30% of my body because I was on the concrete for about 10 minutes before paramedics got to me. And they had to do a skin graft from my thigh I had burned the back of my arm to a 6th degree burn. And that is this arm now, the one that we had shown before. That's what it looks like.
This isn't a distant crisis, it's unfolding right here, right before our eyes. With affordable housing disappearing, rents soaring, and public services pushed to their limits, Phoenix has emerged as the epicenter of urban inequality. Once known as the Valley of the Sun, it now serves as a stark reminder of how swiftly the American dream can fade away. A city overwhelmed to the staggering scale. The homelessness crisis in Phoenix isn't merely concerning, it's staggering, and it serves as one of the most vivid illustrations of the wider Homeless in America challenge. Based on the 2024 point-in-time count, over 9,400 individuals in Phoenix were counted as homeless in just one night. That figure alone represents a significant portion of Arizona's 14,000 unhoused population. Strolling through the city makes the situation impossible to overlook. Shelters overflowing beyond capacity, encampments stretching along streets, and men and women left exposed to some of the nation's most extreme weather. In 2023, Phoenix experienced 28 consecutive days with temperatures soaring to 170 degrees or more, conditions lethal for anyone, but especially for those without refuge.
2 people died over here.
Right here?
2 nights ago, a gal got
Oh, yeah. I heard it.
raped.
Phoenix's homeless population is remarkably varied, including some of society's most at-risk groups. Families with children now make up a growing share, reflecting a 33% national increase that endangers not just education, but childhood itself. Adults over 62 face serious health dangers with little access to the medical care they urgently require. Communities of color, particularly African Americans, are overrepresented. Although they comprise only 7% of the city's population, their presence among the homeless is far greater. And among them are veterans, individuals who once served their nation, now fighting a different kind of battle on their own streets. What intensifies the Phoenix emergency is the climate. Unlike many places where milder weather softens the impact, here the searing desert heat can be deadly. Every year, multiple heat-related fatalities among the homeless are documented. Shelters already pushed to their limits can only house a small fraction of those seeking help, leaving many to suffer in rough encampments or deserted spaces across the city.
I'm angry at the city government because I feel like they're failing the residents here and they're failing the people in the park.
Over the last 5 years, Arizona's homeless population has risen by 40%, positioning Phoenix not merely as part of the issue, but as its focal point. Yet these statistics reveal only part of the reality. Behind every number is a person, a story, a child missing, class, a veteran without hope, a senior too weak to endure. The magnitude is immense, but it's the human suffering that makes it unforgettable. And it leaves behind a disturbing question: how can one of America's fastest expanding, wealthiest cities allow so many of its residents to be left behind? trapped in the abyss, the cycle of addiction. One of the most destructive forces fueling homelessness in Phoenix is the relentless cycle of addiction. For countless individuals, drugs and alcohol are more than mere habits. They become lifelines that eventually turn into chains, dragging them further into hopelessness.
And booze is fentanyl with
How many people around here are into that?
Everybody.
The majority.
Everybody. There's some people that are smoking like 100 or 200 of those a day. I use it for my pain, really.
Local data indicates that between 30 and 40% of Phoenix's homeless population grapples with substance use. But reducing this to a question of personal choice misses the reality. Addiction isn't just a moral weakness. It's a systemic problem deeply intertwined with the broader narrative of homelessness in America. For many, it starts innocently as a coping mechanism for trauma heartbreak or the crushing weight of losing a job. A drink to dull the pain, a pill to silence the anxiety. But before long, what began as comfort transforms into dependency, and dependency solidifies into addiction. And once that threshold is crossed, everything else, employment relationships, even stable housing, can crumble in an instant. Consider John a 68-year-old veteran who once maintained steady work and owned a modest house in Phoenix. When the COVID-19 pandemic cost him his job, he turned to alcohol to numb the sting of isolation and failure. Eviction soon followed, and John ended up sweltering in a tent beneath Phoenix's punishing sun, clutching a bottle for solace. His experience is far from isolated. It exemplifies a destructive loop where homelessness intensifies addiction, and addiction makes climbing out of homelessness nearly unattainable. The crisis is worsened by inadequate resources. Phoenix hosts programs like community bridges that provide genuine hope, but the wait lists are extensive, the budgets are strained, and time is something most can't afford. At the same time, the stigma surrounding addiction causes many to be dismissed as hopeless cases. That stigma obscures the reality that recovery depends not only on willpower, but on access to treatment, stable housing, and support networks that offer a real shot at change. Street life only deepens the struggle. When every night brings threats, scorching temperatures, and utter exhaustion, staying sober becomes nearly unthinkable. Addiction here acts as both a cause and an effect, a result and a trigger, and it forces us to face a difficult question. If homelessness and addiction are entwined in such a lethal cycle, how can Phoenix shatter the loop and restore dignity to its most vulnerable citizens? The Zone, the heart of the crisis. At the very center of Phoenix's homelessness emergency stood a place residents came to call the Zone. Stretching between 7th and 15th Avenues from Van Buren to Grant Streets, it was far more than a mere camp. It functioned like a city within a city, a dense maze of tents, tarps, and improvised shelters packed beneath Arizona's unforgiving sun. Before its removal in 2023, the Zone emerged as the clearest emblem of both suffering and resilience, capturing the brutal reality of what happens when a booming city fails to create a safety net. Life inside the Zone was grueling. People endured not only searing triple-digit temperatures, but also constant struggles with addiction crime and unsanitary conditions. To outsiders, it resembled chaos. For those living there, it was about survival. Neighbors looking out for one another, sharing what little they possessed, forming fragile bonds amid despair. The zone quickly became a focal point for fierce debate. Business owners demanded swift action against crime and decay, while advocates urged compassion, emphasizing that these were people, not statistics. When the Supreme Court decided in 2024 that cities could prohibit outdoor sleeping, Phoenix acted to dismantle the zone. Officials described it as restoring order, but to many, it felt like turning poverty itself into a crime. The camp was cleared, but its residents didn't disappear. They were scattered into smaller hidden areas throughout the city. The same unforgiving heat, the same battles with addiction, and the same lack of aid followed them everywhere. The legacy of the zone persists not merely as a place erased from the map, but as a sobering warning. Temporary sweeps may clear tents, but they don't end homelessness. The zone exposed the limits of surface-level solutions and underscored a painful reality. Without affordable housing, treatment options, and lasting support, the crisis simply shifts elsewhere. In the end, the zone is more than just a page in Phoenix's story. It's a reflection held up to the nation. It compels us to question what it truly means to clear an encampment if we fail to provide a real path to dignity and stability for those who once lived there. Beneath the surface, why the crisis persists. Phoenix's homelessness emergency didn't appear overnight. It stems from entrenched structural problems that mirror the wider issue of homeless in America. At its core is a severe lack of affordable housing. Since 2021, rent costs in Phoenix have climbed by more than 20%, while the availability of budget-friendly homes has shrunk. Arizona now faces a shortfall of 150,000 affordable units, forcing countless families to spend over half their earnings on rent, constantly at risk of eviction. For those already living on the edge, a single setback, whether a medical bill or job loss, can push them from stability to the streets. Economic inequality compounds this crisis. Inflation has surpassed wage growth, especially for lower-income workers, making it nearly unattainable for many to keep up with Phoenix's rising living expenses. Communities of color, particularly African Americans, bear a disproportionate burden, making up a large portion of the homeless population, despite representing only 7% of residents. This imbalance reveals deep systemic inequities, from biased housing policies to unequal opportunities in work and education, trapping vulnerable groups in cycles of hardship. The city's harsh climate magnifies these issues. Phoenix's blistering summers with temperatures frequently topping 117-degree render street life. Not just unbearable, but lethal. Heat-related conditions claim lives each year, hitting older adults and those with illnesses the hardest. The aftermath of COVID-19 has also intensified the strain. The end of pandemic rental aid forced thousands in Phoenix into precarious housing situations as state and federal help lagged behind rising expenses. Additionally, the arrival of migrants to Arizona escaping adversity or pursuing better lives has put extra pressure on housing and social systems, worsening homelessness. These underlying forces, housing scarcity, economic divides, extreme weather, and policy failures, create a perfect storm. They require more than compassion. They call for a serious reckoning with how society has allowed such conditions to endure. Reflecting on these realities, we must ask, can Phoenix confront these systemic shortcomings before the situation grows even more dire? a shared burden, the ripple effect. Phoenix's homelessness crisis doesn't end on the streets. It spreads throughout the entire community, affecting every facet of urban life. For those without shelter, the dangers are immediate and unforgiving. Each summer, dozens perish due to extreme heat, with seniors and people suffering from chronic illnesses impacted the most. Families with children endure another kind of hardship, disrupted education, ongoing instability, and deep emotional wounds that can last a lifetime. Without reliable access to medical care, food, or even safe drinking water, daily existence becomes a constant fight for survival. Yet it's not only the homeless who shoulder the consequences. Phoenix's network of shelters, nonprofits, and public institutions is stretched to the brink. Waitlists for housing help or rehab programs can last for months, while city funds pour millions into emergency responses that can't keep pace with the growing demand. Residents and taxpayers alike question whether resources are going toward real solutions or just temporary fixes on a wound that keeps widening. Neighborhoods near former encampments, such as the Zone, have absorbed much of the strain. Locals express concerns over security, property values, and the fading sense of community pride. Entrepreneurs, meanwhile, watch their businesses suffer from reduced customer flow and worsening public perceptions. These pressures have sparked heated public debates, some pushing for stricter enforcement and legal bans on public sleeping, while others advocate for empathy and lasting reform. Beyond the immediate fallout, Phoenix's image is at stake. Once promoted as a hub of growth, creativity, and endless sunshine, its national profile is now overshadowed by widespread encampments and nightly broadcasts of suffering in the desert. Tourism and investment don't thrive amid such stark realities. Still, amid the adversity, signs of resilience emerge churches transforming into cooling centers, volunteers distributing bottled water in 110-degree heat, and grassroots groups stepping up where systems have failed. In the end, homelessness in Phoenix isn't just a personal crisis, it's a shared responsibility. The city's destiny hinges on whether its people, leadership, and institutions can unite to turn empathy into real change and rebuild both lives and the promise of the community. Beacons of hope solutions taking root. Even amid a crisis that can often feel insurmountable, Phoenix is experimenting with ambitious new strategies that offer a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak scene. One of the most striking initiatives is the city's trial of solar-powered shipping containers transformed into emergency housing. These small, climate-controlled units may not be luxurious, but they're life-saving in a place where summer heat can be relentless. Supported by groups like St. Vincent de Paul, hundreds have already found refuge inside these innovative shelters. For many, it's the first time in years they've had a door to lock a cool place to rest and a moment of dignity. It proves that imagination and compassion can work together. Another cornerstone of Phoenix's strategy is the Housing First model. This method overturns traditional approaches. Instead of demanding sobriety or employment first, it provides stable housing, upfront recognizing that security is the basis for transformation. The early outcomes are encouraging, though the initiative reaches only a fraction of the city's need, covering just 30% of demand. Lengthy delays for federal resources like Section 8 vouchers keep many families in limbo, holding on to hope while sleeping in cars or moving between friends' couches. Grassroots and community-led efforts play an equally crucial role. Faith groups, nonprofits, and volunteers are out every day distributing water, meals, and clothing, especially during Phoenix's punishing summers, when survival itself is at stake. The Maricopa County Continuum of Care has stepped in to better coordinate these efforts, aiming to create a smoother path from the streets to shelter and ultimately to permanent housing. Meanwhile, addiction treatment initiatives such as those offered by Community Bridges provide a critical safety net for individuals ready to make a change, though persistent funding shortages limit their impact. Every one of these actions, whether it's a cooled container, a housing first apartment, or a volunteer with bottled water, reinforces one reality: Phoenix isn't ignoring its crisis. While these efforts don't yet meet the full scale of the problem, they signal a commitment to tackle it through creativity, empathy, and the belief that even the toughest challenges can be addressed with human resolve. Faces of Resilience, the Human Cost. Behind each headline about Phoenix's homelessness crisis lies a person, a narrative, a life upended. Consider Maria, a 65-year-old grandmother who once enjoyed a modest, steady existence. An unexpected medical emergency wiped out her savings and cost her the apartment she had cherished for years. With no options left, she found herself in the zone, sleeping in a tent, enduring blistering days and sleepless nights marked by fear and fatigue. Just as hope began to fade, a nonprofit stepped in and secured her one of the city's container homes, modest, compact, but secure. Today, Maria is slowly rebuilding her life. Her story stands as proof of resilience and a testament to how community support can transform lives. Accounts like Maria's pierce through statistics and remind us of the humanity too often ignored. These are not anonymous homeless individuals. They are grandparents, veterans, parents, neighbors who once held jobs, paid rent, and raised families. Homelessness is not a chosen way of life. It stems from systemic failures to protect the vulnerable, shortages of affordable housing, healthcare gaps, and barriers to treatment. What's required is empathy, not condemnation. Every bottle of water offered in the heat, every shared meal, every push for better policy speaks to the soul of this community. Container homes shining beneath the Arizona sun represent more than shelter, they embody hope. If Phoenix adopts this human-centered view, it can lead with both heart and bravery, showing that dignity and possibility can be rebuilt one person at a time. Conclusion. Phoenix's homelessness crisis, shaped by the remnants of the zone, the hold of addiction, and deep systemic shortcomings, stands as a collective call to act. Creative approaches such as container housing and housing first provide hope, but lasting progress demands unwavering commitment. Lawmakers must focus on expanding affordable housing and strengthening addiction services, while communities can play their part through advocacy and hands-on support. Phoenix has a chance to rewrite this crisis into a story of renewal, setting an example of both compassion and ingenuity. Together, we can build a city where no one sleeps beneath the blazing sun and every individual has a place to call home.